Welcome to the SS Lane Victory Signal Bridge. This is the signal bridge during the wars when we had to maintain radio silence so the enemy couldn't pick up the messages. We used visual communication. It was all done from up here. Now right here on these two towers we have signal lights using Morse code, which were dots and dashes. We also had what's known as the flag bag. It has the alphabet and flags and numerals. We could send up flags which would contain a message. Little information on the SS Lane Victory has the call letters, which are KECW. These are like a phone number where if somebody wanted to contact us and we were flying these flags, and if they flew those flags, we knew they were calling us, much more or less like calling us on a phone. And we used visual communication to go back and forth once we realized they were calling us with these call letters. All the merchant ships started with a K. All the Navy ships started with an N. These are the alphabet flags which are contained in this flag bag, also with numerals. Some flags by themselves had a meaning. Longer messages had to be sent with a series of flags, which would then have to be read from a code book by the receiving ship. We also, if we were close enough, especially in convoys, we would use semaphore. These were the semaphore flags we used. It was the alphabet. You had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. You could spell out words and communicate that way. We were dealing with aircraft, which were pretty hard to follow with a light. We would use the Aldous light, which is a small portable light. We could communicate with aircraft. What we have here is a helm. Usually the captain commanded the ship from the pilot house, which is below one deck here. But if you wanted good visibility, you could command the ship from up here. You have the wheel, the compass, Polaris, and a voice tube where the lookouts could talk directly down to the captain right through this tube. And what we have right here is a very powerful searchlight manipulated from the pilot house one deck below. Another item that's manipulated by the below deck is this radio rangefinder. Now it detects which direction radio signals are coming from. This up here is a signal light which blinks dots and dashes in Morse code, which is the most used method of signaling while we were in convoy or in contact with any other ship. These guns are 20 millimeter Oerlikon cannons. These are good at any aircraft and surface guns because the projectile explodes when it makes contact. These are the 50 caliber Browning machine guns, and this is the ammunition that they fired. Also a good aircraft and surface weapon. So we have 20 millimeters and 50 caliber machine guns right here on the signal bridge, manned by gunners. Where the signalmen took care of the communications, the gunners handled the guns. This ship is not a naval vessel. It is a merchant marine vessel. There was not one invasion that was held that didn't have a merchant marine vessel in the invasion. They had to be there because these ships were the ones that brought in the supplies, namely ammunition, medical supplies, food, troops, tanks, cargo, whatever cargo was needed. Now these ships operated under Navy orders, and they went wherever the Navy decided us to go. So the armed guard sailors that served on these ships got to really travel around the world, as opposed to a fleet ship that went to a certain combat zone and more or less stayed there. During the early part of the war, they built Liberty ships as fast as they could, figuring if we built them faster than they could sink them, we could win the war. And later on, they built better ships called Victory ships. Now this is a Victory ship. It's longer, wider, faster, and carries more cargo than a Liberty ship. Now these ships were manned by merchant mariners, which were civilians. When the Navy put on guns on these ships, the civilians were not allowed to fire them technically, but sometimes they did. So the Navy put on Navy personnel to man the weapons and visual communication, signalmen and radiomen. And these sailors were called the armed guard. They were not standing sentry duty with a rifle on their shoulder. We were serving on these merchant ships. There were approximately 1,664 merchant ships sunk during World War II. And of those, 216 of them were American Liberty ships. So it really wasn't a picnic. The most infamous convoy were the convoys that ran to Russia. They call that the Murmansk Run. There was one convoy, PQ-17, that sailed for Russia with 33 ships. 11 of them got there, and 3 of those were sunk on the way back. So it was no picnic. I went in 1943. I was 17 years old. I served on a T2 tanker, armed guard, and a Liberty ship that was converted to a tanker on a Liberty ship. Then after that, I was transferred to the fleet. In the fleet, I sailed on the USS Tucson, which was a light anti-aircraft cruiser, which was protecting Bull Halsey's big fleet carriers in the Pacific. So I got a taste of both navies, the Armed Guard Navy and the Fleet Navy. I'll take the Armed Guard Navy anytime because we were kind of casual. We actually ate off of a menu. And regulations were kind of lax. I went in 43, I got out in 46. I got out on the point system. And during World War II, near the end of the war, they came up with a point system where you would get points for your length of time in the service, your rank, which I was a second-class signalman petty officer, and your combat zone experience in actual combat. When you totaled up to 85 points, even though your hitch in the Navy was not up, you could get out. I was in San Diego on a USS Tucson when I found out I had 85 points, and I said goodbye to the Navy. The war was over, and I felt that I had done my duty.
I'm here with Hannon Binder. He's one of our World War II vet. Hannon, can you tell us what you did in World War II?
Well, I was a signalman. I was in the Armed Guard, which is a small Navy group that's put on all merchant ships to man the guns and communication. And I was the signalman.
And you're also a volunteer here on the Lane Victory, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Since 1990. I've made every cruise since 1991, which was the first one, except one, which was when I had back surgery.
What's it like to be on the cruises, to see this ship come back to life?
Well, it's been a long time coming, and it's been a lot of fun, and you're on board with a lot of people that you get close to. It doesn't take long to get close to shipmates, so it's been fun, and we've restored the ship from used to be just a pile of rust, and now it's looking real good.